you all here, and I'm really looking forward to our session today. This is my first time, obviously, at Saturday morning at Rogers, but my second time in Toronto, as I mentioned to some of you who saw me when I was talking a little bit earlier. So I'm just going to show you quickly where I'm from. So this is Redmond, Washington State, and in case you wanted to see a little bit of perspective, I'm going to zoom out by quite a few, so you can see exactly where in the world Redmond is. In relation to other large cities, we're kind of a suburb of Seattle, and Redmond is famous. Does anyone know what Redmond is kind of famous for? No one's heard of Redmond. Okay, well, raise your hand if you've ever heard of Microsoft.
Yeah.
Redmond is home to the headquarters of Microsoft, so that is what a lot of people know it for. So here is Redmond, Washington State. Zooming out even more, you can see, does anyone know what this island over here is that I wrote my mouse?
Vancouver.
Vancouver Island, yep. And over here, I've always thought how it's funny, there's a city called Vancouver in BC, but then there's Vancouver Island. And we used to, when I was little, we would sometimes go on vacation by taking the ferry up to Victoria, which was very nice, very beautiful city there. So if you zoom out, then you can see it's right underneath British Columbia. And where are we on this map? Yeah, way over here. And you actually have to drag it over just in order to see Toronto all the way down here. So, as you can imagine, I'm going to have a long flight back home from Toronto all the way back to Seattle. That'll be this afternoon, actually. It's my flight, so you can think about that. If you see a plane pass overhead around 6 o'clock p.m., it might be mine. So, today, we're going to be talking about a few different things. We're going to be talking about, as you mentioned, leadership, as well as Halloween fun, creativity, and my sister will be speaking in the middle about some classical composers, musical appreciation, as well as what all that has to do with Halloween. I think she has some pretty fun sketches. I'm not going to, right? Yep. I'm not going to reveal more about her presentation than she wants me to, though. So I'm starting with a bit about leadership. And when you guys think of leadership, you might think of world leaders, presidents, prime ministers. As I mentioned earlier, you probably think of world leaders on, or leaders on the world leaders area. But I want you to think, have you ever played the game Simon Says? Raise your hand if you ever played the game Simon Says. I see a lot of raised hands, pretty much everyone has. What about Capture the Flag? Maybe not as many people. Some, I know I've played Capture the Flag, like backyard version with not as many rules. I'm not sure if that counts. What about Follow the Leader? Raise your hand if you've ever played Follow the Leader. So I'm seeing that a lot of people have played these games, but what do all of these games have in common? Anyone want to guess? Yes?
A leader.
There's a leader, yes, exactly. Simon Says, Capture the Flag, and Follow the Leader all involve some form of leadership. In Simon Says, you have to guide others, give them directions. In Capture the Flag, then you have to work with a team. And Follow the Leader is, well, kind of obvious. But surely leadership means more than childhood games, right? Or does it? Today we're going to be taking a look at what leadership means and answering the question, what makes a good leader? So to go over to the presentation here. I thought I was very clever by having this little kind of slideshow. It's leadership in you, but I added a TH in parentheses, so it's leadership in you and leadership in youth. All right, so we'll be answering the questions, what is leadership and what makes a good leader? So what defines a leader? One of the definitions in the dictionary is a leader is somebody who guides others. What does this mean? If you're guiding others, what does that mean? Yes? You're telling them what to do. Yep, it could mean telling someone what to do. It could mean giving them directions. It could mean showing them a better way of life. Guiding others could mean any variety of things, including telling people what to do, which is what you see leaders doing sometimes. And you can be a leader on the playground, in the classroom, in your house, in your community, or even the leader of the free world. There are many ways to be a leader. But first you have to provide others with good reasons to follow you. I'm going to grab my clicker over here. What makes a leader exactly? What makes a good leader? What do you guys think makes a good leader? Yes?
Good instructions.
Good instructions. So you want to be clear. You want to be able to direct other people efficiently. What about you? What do you think makes a good leader?
Someone who's not too bossy. They're nice in a kind way, telling you.
Yep, someone who's not too bossy, nice in a kind way. That's very important. So what are some other leadership qualities that you find important? Yes?
Vision for the future?
Vision for the future, very important. And so here are a few of the leadership qualities that I just sort of picked at random. I think a great leader respects differences, cares about people, considers consequences, works well individually or on a team. Those are just a few that I made in the list. And you probably have your own list of what you think makes a great leader. Yours may include being able to endure long distances of walking. I mean, it could be some kind of random like that because, you know, a great leader might have to do that. But we all have our own ideas on what makes a great leader. And we want to try to get those qualities ourselves in becoming leaders. So let's write down a few of the things that we think makes great leaders. I'll open up a Word document. It means to do that. Sorry, I'm checking. There we go. All right, so let's make a list. Loading, of course. All right, so we have nice and kind, not too bossy, visionary. There was another one, right? Okay, gives instructions clearly. Yes. All right, and let's get one more quality of a leader. Yes. Mm-hmm. Responsible. Yeah, that's right. Taking responsibility for their actions. Okay, so here are a few of the qualities that we think make some good leaders, including nice and kind, not too bossy, visionary, gives instructions clearly, responsible, and then of course I have a bit of a list right here. And right now we're going to be taking a look at some leaders of the past, the present, and as well the future to see what makes them good leaders, what can we learn from both their virtues and their mistakes. So, who are some of your favorite leaders from history? You can tell me, you can throw out any random leader from history. Who is your favorite leader from history? Fraser? Yep. John F. Kennedy? Okay. So, we'll be making a short list over here. So, what do you think makes John F. Kennedy, or made John F. Kennedy a good leader? Hmm? I just picked it random. Okay. That's fine. Who else would like to tell me? What made John F. Kennedy a good leader? Yes?
Terry Fox.
Oh, what? Sorry. I can write him down, but Terry Fox, would you like to tell me about him or her? Him, okay. Is he Canadian? Okay, sorry. I come from the U.S., so I may not know. I'll warn you ahead of time that I may not know. I bet he's very famous, and I sound really stupid saying that. Would anyone? Yeah. Do you want to tell me about him? I can write it down.
Well, he lost his leg from cancer, and he ran around the world trying to save enough money to help other people.
Oh no, I have heard of him actually. I think that I saw him on. I might have heard about him on the news once. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let me write it down. That sounds great. So, what would you say would be an example of the quality that he would demonstrate?
Perseverance.
Perseverance, yeah. And then back to JFK. Let's throw out a one-word quality of JFK that made him a good leader. Yes? Or it could be 2 words, 3 words.
For him, I would say he would be visionary. Back in the 60s, he had a vision that he had an open-mindedness.
Yep.
Probably visionary. For back in the 60s, visionary.
Okay, visionary. So we have that on there. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely see. I mean, we were actually at the Space Center in Houston, and they had the lectern that he used to say that the U.S. wanted to go to the moon. So that was pretty cool, and I would definitely say visionary. Okay. Let's throw out another leader. Yes.
Ted Rogers, which is our home lesson.
Ted Rogers. Oh, that is so coincidental. Yes. I have him on my presentation. We're going to discuss him actually. So let me get over there. He's I had it kind of in chronological order, so he's toward the end of the history. But all right. So Nellie Letitia McClung. Does anyone know who she was? Okay. I'm glad that I actually, I was trying to make an effort to pick some Canadians, and And so I was looking up some famous people from history because, I can't like go in. I obviously growing from the U.S. I know all about like American leaders and stuff like that. But since we are in Canada, I thought it would be appropriate to have some Canadian leaders. And so Nellie Letitia McClung was one of the leaders in the women's suffrage movement in Canada. Does anyone want to tell me what women's suffrage was? Yes? Wanted women to have the right to vote, but also to participate in government. Being able to be in government. And she was part of a group of 5 women known as the Famous Five that actually was, I think, in a case involving the government in Canada, asking the question: Are women persons? So it was known as the Persons case, very famous. And I believe the government actually ruled that women are not persons when it comes to, if the interpretation is can they participate in government, as in, hold elected office. So that was really interesting reading up about her and the role that she played. So she was one of the women on that case trying to get the government to recognize women as persons. And throughout her life, she worked to gain better rights for women, whether it came at work or at home. So that's what Nellie McClung did. Would anyone like to give me a few words that might describe the work that she did or her leadership qualities? Yes?
Determination.
Determination? Yeah. So I would say determination would definitely describe her because, this was a time when women were still considered second-class citizens, and having the determination to try to change that, I think, was very impressive. What about Winston Churchill? So from Britain. Anyone want to tell me about Winston Churchill? Probably some of you.
Great speechwriter.
Great speechwriter, definitely. We see that quality a lot in leaders. So what's an adjective that might describe a great speechwriter?
Communicator.
Good communicator, right? Maybe eloquent.
Inspiring.
Creative.
Did you say creative?
Yeah.
Creative, yeah, actually, saying that not a whole lot of people know about Winston Churchill was that he really enjoyed painting, and he wrote several books, I believe, about England, so he was very skilled at a lot of things, not just at leading England through a time of war, but also at some of the finer arts. What about Tommy Douglas? Anyone want to tell us who Tommy Douglas was? Okay, so Tommy Douglas was I feel weird explaining, again, being from the U.S. explaining Canadian history, I feel like someone from Canada should know this. Okay, well, Prime Minister who introduced, probably the most famous for introducing universal health care to Canada. Whether or not you agree with his actions or his politics, I think that you can agree that he was a very powerful leader. So what are some of the qualities that might have made Tommy Douglas powerful? Yes?
Caring.
Caring? Yeah, you could definitely say he probably would care about the Canadian people. Okay, so caring. Anything else?
Views that are all encompassing. Like this is kind of like a global perspective.
Global perspective. Okay, great. I'm not sure why some of the keys aren't. All right, there we go. And I thought it would be very appropriate, since this is Saturday morning at Rogers, to bring up Ted Rogers. And I was actually debating whether to do Ted Rogers Sr. or Ted Rogers Jr., but since I looked them both up on Wikipedia, and I found that Ted Rogers Jr. had more of an influence on shaping the company and making Rogers Communications into as large as it is today. So would anyone like to tell me about Ted Rogers, because I'm sure that you would probably know more about him than I do. No?
He was a visionary, and he was a risk taker.
Visionary and risk taker, yes. And I actually, I read a really interesting story about him which illustrates that point. When he was in, we do have visionary already, but yeah, risk taker. When he was in college, I believe when he was still a law student, then I think it was in 1960 or something, then he actually bought up all the shares in a local radio station that had the use of FM technology, or frequency modulation. And this was at a time when only 5% of Canadian households had FM receivers, and he bought up all the shares in this local station. So I would definitely say that's visionary, seeing how FM would become more prevalent. So yeah, visionary, risk taker.
He's very entrepreneurial.
Very entrepreneurial, another good one. Oops, of course I failed to.
Don't check.
Yeah, okay, so Now, possibly a little more controversial leader. What about Napoleon? What do you think were some qualities of Napoleon? Confident. Yeah, I would say maybe a little too confident. just from the way he's posing in that picture. But yeah, okay. So Napoleon, Napoleon, he rose from a short midget to a short midget emperor, and so I think that you can say that's very impressive. And it's definitely an example of being able to rise beyond adversity. As a kid, he was, I think, teased in school or something because he was from Corsica, which was kind of thought of more Italian than French, but it was an island and people thought of him as kind of an outsider in school, so he was teased in school. And I think that rising beyond adversity and really becoming very powerful, he did that very well, although, of course, you could say Napoleon isn't a very good role model for kids today. Why might you say that? Why might Napoleon not be a very good role model necessarily? Any ideas? Well, I think that your teachers might not encourage taking over small foreign countries mercilessly. And so it was that kind of attitude, this, hey, I'm going to take over your country and put one of my brothers or sisters on the throne, that made Napoleon, well, not very well liked in some areas, especially the countries that he was taking over. But I think that it's important to realize also that most leaders have flaws which keep them from being perfect all the time. I mean, we have lots of leaders today who make mistakes in front of the camera. Have you guys had any of those really embarrassing incidents recently where politicians are in front of the camera and they, when I think it was Gordon Brown maybe who was in the car and he didn't realize that a microphone was on and he said something kind of nasty about a lady who had asked him a question or something. So, there are these moments that all of us have where we're like, oh, I really don't like that question, and you say it thinking, okay, microphone's not on, and it happens to be on. But I want you to raise your hand if you are perfect. I don't see any raised hands. Yeah, I don't think any of us are really perfect. In fact, I would be extremely suspicious of someone who claims to be so. So it's really important to realize that just like us, leaders are people. What does that mean? I think that the fact that leaders are people shows that they too can make mistakes. However, as a leader, the stakes of making mistakes are a whole lot higher, because when you make a bad decision as a leader, it might not just impact you, it could impact others. When you decide what dress to wear for a dance, if you choose a bad color, it just reflects badly on you. Whereas if you're a leader and you decide, hey, I'll do this or I'll do that, when it comes to the international scale or national scale, it could affect millions of people. So we see a lot of times where leaders might make mistakes and we think, another politician or another whoever it is, but we also have to realize, we are people, and as leaders, we don't have to be perfect all the time. And hindsight is 20/20. Does anyone know what hindsight is? What's hindsight? Yes?
Realizing, looking back in time of something that happened.
Yes. Hindsight is when you look back, and there's a saying, hindsight is 20/20, which means that when you look back, you see, oh, I did this wrong, I could have done this much better. It's all the stuff that you didn't know when you did it. Like, for instance, it happens to us every day. Yesterday, we were out on a walk in Toronto, and I was like, the hotel is definitely over there, because we were kind of lost. And we start walking over there, and no, it's not the hotel. If I had that hindsight, I would know that, no, that wasn't the right direction, but obviously we live in the present, we can't go back in time. But sometimes these wrong choices are easier to spot when you know the outcome, so we can learn from these leaders of the past and whatever good things they did or whatever mistakes they made, and look back on that and learn from those things. So today, with 20/20 hindsight, we can learn from the virtues and mistakes of historical leaders. We can learn from their good decisions, and by studying their mistakes, we can know better than to fall into the same traps of thought next time. If history isn't your cup of tea, then it is time to move into the leaders of the present. We can learn also from the virtues and mistakes of today's leaders. Today's leaders have to operate in a very different world from the world of the past. Who would like to tell me what are some ways that the world has changed over time from the world of Winston Churchill to now? The internet, exactly. The internet, computers, technology, these have all made huge leaps. Some things which we didn't have like a couple decades ago now have made so many more things possible. So for instance, would any of the adults in the room like to say something that they can do today that they wouldn't have been able to do growing up? Yes?
Gathering of information.
gathering of information on the internet, or?
Yeah, well, you used to, you'd have your encyclopedia, you could go to
Yep.
the library, but now you can do that and still many other sources of receiving information.
Yep, very, very good. So, you know, probably for the adults, even when you were growing up, there was maybe one source of information, that would be your local library, and today we have so many more sources of information. We have our library still, but also the internet and all the websites and online resources there, as well as, you know, we're now connected on social networking, digital, and all of that definitely gives us more information. Today's leaders also operate in a global society. What do I mean when I say global society?
It's the whole world.
It's the whole world, yeah, exactly. Whereas before, like let's say in the mid-1800s, you know, you still had some of these nations like China or Japan that were, for most intents and purposes, shut off to the rest of the world until imperialist powers came in. That's what I was actually learning about in history. So you still had areas that foreigners hadn't gone to or hadn't gone to very much, and you definitely didn't have a very good way of communicating with people all around the world quickly and efficiently. You could write a letter, but that letter would have to be loaded onto a horse, where it would go to a port, where it would go on a ship, and that ship would take maybe months to reach its next destination, and then your letter would arrive. So there wasn't our instant communication like we have now, and that's really what's making it a global society. And many of the problems that today's leaders deal with are global problems. So for example, the environmental crisis would be an example of a global problem. What's another example of a global problem? Something that affects people around the world. Yes?
Environmental.
Yes, environmental, definitely. What are some other issues? Yes? The economy. Yep. Now with our interconnected economy, when the U.S. economy isn't doing well, that might affect the Chinese economy. When the Chinese economy isn't doing well, that might affect the Russian economy. With the Russian economy, so it's these connections that are really all over the world when it comes to the economy, when it comes to the environment. What are some other things that affect the whole world?
War.
War, yep, conflict. Now we see terrorism affecting not just the Western world, but also, I mean, really around the world. And one other global problem, yes?
Healthcare?
Healthcare, yes. As you know, as we saw with H1N1 flu, then people flying from one place to another, spreading the disease until it really became a global issue and not just the issue of one government or one country. And one of the things with global problems is that they affect everyone. And our world isn't ruled by one government. It's ruled by many different governments, many different people. And so what do you have to do? You have to cooperate. What does cooperating mean?
Work together.
Working together, exactly. Who would like to give me an example of a time they worked together? It could be in school, it could be at your home. Yes?
One time when I was at my school, we were playing capture the flag and we weren't doing that well, but my teacher said you have to figure it out ourselves, and we decided to cooperate and work together, and then we had fun in the end.
Exactly, playing capture the flag at your school, and then you weren't doing so well, and so when you started cooperating, then it started to go better. That's a great example. Okay, so I completely forgot, actually, I'm giving books away to those who have participated, so I think I'll probably do that after the session, as long as I remember a few people who participated the most. I think that should work. And then one of the things as our world develops is that each generation of leaders faces different challenges and thus needs different skills in order to be able to succeed. So what are some skills you might need today that you wouldn't need back in the 1800s?
Computers.
Computers, yeah, you need to be good with computers, you need to know how to use technology. What are some other skills? Yes?
Clean water.
You need, sorry?
You need some clean water because if you have dirty water, you get sick.
That's a good point. Like today with resources, you know, you need water, you need to make sure all those, and again, we're becoming concerned. Whereas the United States might not used to care about what happened in Africa or what happened in Asia. Now, again, with that global connected society, what are some skills that you would need as a leader today? Yes?
Just managing the speed of life, and as the speed of life is coming on, you're getting in all this information. You have to make relevant decisions on that are sustainable.
Yes, we have lots more information coming on. We have to make decisions about them. And when you have such a huge volume of information, such a huge volume of global problems, then again, it's a lot more decision making, and you have to be, again, very good at decision making. Let's get one more skill that you would need to succeed as a leader. Yes?
You need to be aware of what's going on around you.
You need to be aware of what's going on around you. Global issues. Yes, definitely. So, for instance, let's say I took a leader out of the 1500s, 1600s, and plopped her or him into today. For instance, let's take a monarch like Queen Elizabeth. What might be wrong with Queen Elizabeth ruling today? What were some skills she might lack?
How to dress.
Yeah, okay, so for one, she needs to lighten up her wardrobe. You can see that that might not quite fit in. Maybe it would Saturday morning at Rogers if she was getting dressed up, but aside from that. One other thing I think it's important to know is Queen Elizabeth was a monarch, which means that she was the ruler of what went on in England. And although there was still like some amount of advisors and other people who would make a few decisions, she was really definitely a person who would make a lot of decisions for the nation. And the amount of power that she had is definitely a lot more than our presidents and prime ministers have today. And so she might be more used to getting her own way, just saying, off with your head all the time, instead of actually saying, okay, now you get to have your fair trial in front of a jury of your peers. I mean, that wouldn't really happen. So she would also probably offend some modern citizens who aren't used to leaders being quite so obviously bossy. That would just be my thinking. There would probably be a few other issues with Queen Elizabeth ruling today. But as you can see, the leaders of the past wouldn't necessarily always work today because they would lack some of those crucial skills. Modern leaders need to be able to think globally. So when I say think globally, it's again going back to the global issues with the global society, being connected to other countries, understand diverse cultural beliefs, which also ties into the first one, avoid offending diverse cultural groups. Why might this diversity, this global connection, why is this so important?
Global village now.
Yes, exactly. It's a global village now. And it used to be where, okay, I'm white, I'm black, and you would really have a very segregated community. But as we move on to this global village, then we're really becoming, we have to become a society that doesn't care so much about what color that your skin is or what country you come from. And thinking quickly is important, as well as compromising and innovating to come up with global solutions to global problems. A lot of the problems we have today, you can't just solve them with a click of a button or by saying, okay, do this, do that. You have to really think of creative, out-of-the-box ways to solve them. So what qualities would a perfect modern leader have? Modern leaders need to be able to sniff out potential trouble in order to stay away from it. I'm not actually sure if there's something wrong with that chicken nugget. I just thought the picture worked. And in a world where so many people have access to recorders, television, and YouTube, everything that modern leaders say is now being recorded, analyzed by people around the world. As I was talking about, sometimes you don't know that the microphone is on. And the words of a modern leader can have weight and far-reaching effects around the world. Something that you say, let's say that you are the Prime Minister of Canada. Something that you say might actually, maybe just as an offhanded comment, might go around the world and be distributed. And so that is something very important to consider. Modern leaders need to watch what they say. Sometimes that's good, sometimes it's not so good because, if you watch what you say too much, then you also might not share your opinion. So you have to strike that fine balance in between it. Modern leaders also need to be able to see many sides of an issue. Give me an example of seeing many sides of an issue. Yes?
Maybe
Yes?
Me? For kids, it'd probably be bullying at school. Why is this situation happening? And how can you prevent this from happening?
Very good. Yeah, bullying at school. You might be looking at why is this situation happening? How can you prevent it from happening? So, for instance, let's say you see someone being bullied. Then first you might take this. You might look at who's being bullied, and you might think, oh, well, if you stepped into their shoes, maybe you've heard that, then you think, okay, this is a very bad situation. I feel embarrassed. I feel humiliated. I feel really angry at this person who is bullying me. Then if you step into the shoes of the bully, then you might say, I have a lot of trouble at home. I want to get out anger on someone else. So when you step into someone else's shoes, you see many sides of an issue. Then that's really a skill that modern leaders need to have. So we can't really implant little eyes all around our head, but what we can do is instead of impulsively making a decision or an opinion about an issue, then we can look at all sides of an issue before we decide. Like we did with the leaders throughout history, we're going to be taking a look at some of the leaders of the present, but first, who are some of your favorite leaders today? Yes?
Mayor Hazel McCallan.
Mayor, let me write.
Mayor of Mississauga.
Mayor of Mississauga, okay. Do you live in Mississauga?
Yes.
Okay. And can you spell his
Her name Hazel.
H-A-Z-E-L.
Her name Hazel McCallion.
Hazel? Oh, Hazel, okay. Hazel Miss
C-A-L-L. I think it's A-U-N, I think.
Okay, yeah, close enough. Okay, and let's get one more favorite leader of today. Yes? Martin Luther King, okay.
President Obama.
I like him.
President Obama. Yes, okay. And so let's look at these leaders, and what are some things that make you like the mayor of Mississauga? What are some leadership qualities? She, right? Yeah.
Changing tax prices.
Okay, sorry?
Tax prices.
Changing taxes. Okay, so what might that be? An example of leadership quality? Like, for instance, maybe it would be caring about people, or
Caring about people.
okay. So, oh, we do a caring. I would put understanding, maybe. All right. What about Martin Luther King, leadership quality? Yes.
Sorry, as with Hazel, she's just an excellent manager.
Oh, okay. Good managerial skills. Which, yeah, you definitely need for leading a team. Okay, so back on to a quality. What was the quality? Martin Luther King, by the way, in case you don't know. Yes.
He liked to be an individual, like he liked to be set aside from everyone else.
Individual. Yes, definitely. So Martin Luther King, for those of you who don't know, he was definitely one of the driving forces behind trying to end segregation in the United States and getting equal rights for African Americans. So, going back to the presentation here. So we looked at some of, oh wait, no, we missed. President Obama, leadership quality, President Obama. Yes?
Optimistic.
Optimistic, okay, yes. All right, there we go. So, back to the presentation. I figured that since I put Tommy Douglas, then I need to put Stephen Harper. You know, I don't want to have like one Prime Minister of Canada, not the current Prime Minister. So, would anyone like to tell me leadership quality of Stephen Harper? Again, I completely understand if you disagree with his politics, but you know, leadership quality.
Really come up with one.
Yes, go ahead.
Well, he's not afraid to share his opinion.
Okay, not afraid to share his opinion. Yes, that's a good one. Yeah, even if you don't agree with the opinion, then yeah, not afraid to share. Okay, so. All right, there we go. Okay. And again, while I was doing my research on all the Canadian public figures, I also read that he was, what was it? Oh yeah, there were some 10 most trusted Canadians on Reader's Digest. I think he was number 8. I'm not sure if that's good or bad, number 8, but yeah, I just thought I'd mention it. So another thing was he was the first Canadian Prime Minister, I believe, to speak to the Parliament of Australia. And yeah, so I'm not sure. Global connections, possibly. All right, so moving on. What about someone who's probably a little less partisan? The great one, Wayne Gretzky. So, any leadership qualities that you can suggest?
Competitive.
Competitive, okay. Very good. Anything else? Yes?
Team player.
Team player. So teamwork. And let's get one more thing.
Speaks well for the team. Like he just, in times of wins and losses, he always speaks as a group.
Okay, great. All right, yeah, I figured Wayne Gretzky would be a little less polarizing than Stephen Harper. What about Oprah?
She articulates.
Who is she?
I can explain. She is a media mogul. Okay, maybe I don't need to. It's hard to, also it's hard to explain Oprah because we've gotten so used to just, okay, this is Oprah, like, don't even have to explain. Okay, so articulates well. Anything else?
Even with her mass amount of power and influence, she's still able to communicate to the masses.
With regular people, yep. And yes? very passionate about issues. Yep. And
She deals with everyday problems.
deals with everyday problems. Yep. And I think that this all ties into a common thread that we're seeing here with our list of leadership qualities is being able to relate to normal everyday people, being able to care about those same issues. So going back to the presentation, kind of toggling through. David Suzuki. Does anyone know who David Suzuki is? Yes, I see some raised hands. Okay, so leadership qualities, David Suzuki. Yes? Sorry? He's environmental. Yeah, he's environmental, so cares about a global issue. And on this 10 most trusted Canadians from Reader's Digest, he was #1 actually. I'm not sure how old the 10 most trusted Canadians is. I might have been from last year, but it was pretty interesting. And one more, yes?
I was just thinking that looking through all the lists, there's one thing that we don't have up there, but a good leader needs to be able to listen.
Able to listen, yes. Very good one, able to listen. Because a lot of times when we think of leadership, we think of do this, do that. And it's very important to realize that that's not what leadership is about. If you're all about do this, do that, then you're bossy, not necessarily a leader. And so being able to listen is incredibly important. That's why when you see, in the US, and we have some pretty important elections coming up, and you'll see the senators and representatives who are going into their communities, talking with people, and it always makes good campaign messages because it shows that they're listening. Yes?
Just not only able to listen, but taking their advice and using it in some helpful way, instead of just saying, oh, okay, cool.
Yep, taking advice and using it. Again, because a lot of people, when they see politicians speaking with constituents, they're like, okay, well, they're just doing this for the campaign. Are they actually going to be taking those ideas and using them in a meaningful way? So it's very important. Back to the presentation. So we've done quite a bit of talking about these modern leaders, but of course, just like their historical counterparts, modern leaders have flaws of their own. And as we discussed, nobody's perfect, except maybe in our imagination. So now it's time for a fun segment, which I call Leaders of Our Imagination. Now what this is, well, I've been using a lot of examples of leaders in real life, but I wanted to talk with you on what an ideal leader looked like and where you can find leaders in a maybe lesser known area. So for instance, who are some leaders you've read about in books? I chose probably one of the most famous ones, Harry Potter. Even if they're not like, again, in world leader positions, you can see how your favorite main characters in books are in a leadership position. So for example, Harry Potter, leading the fight against Lord Voldemort, loyal to friends, is caring about others. You know, you can list some of these qualities. Who are some leaders you've read about in books? Yes? Percy Jackson. Okay. I see some. What is wrong with Percy Jackson? Okay. And what makes him what are some leadership qualities? Okay, stands up for what he believes in. All right, let's get one more character from a book who you think exhibits leadership skills. Yes? I'm sorry? Sorry, it's a little hard to hear. How do you spell that?
Honesty.
Oh, honesty, I see. Oh, okay, I thought it was the other. So honesty is a very important leadership quality. Great. All right, and one more character. So let's
Superman.
Superman, okay. That's one of the probably most well-known. So what makes Superman, what gives him leadership qualities?
Strength, justice.
Strength, justice, okay.